the worm Ouroboros by Eddison. Chapter 4. Conjuring in the Iron Tower. Of the Hold of Carsi, and of the midnight practices of King Eddison the 12th, in the ancient chamber, preparing dole and doom for the lords of Demonland. When the witches were come aboard of their ship, and all stowed, and the rowers set in order on the benches, they bade farewell to the red folliot, and rowed out to the deep, and there hoisted sail, and put up the helm, and sailed eastward along the land. The stars wheeled overhead, and the east grew pale, and the sun came out of the sea on the larboard bow. Still sailed they 2 days and 2 nights, and on the 3rd day there was land ahead, and morning rose abated by mist and cloud, and the sun was as a ball of red fire over Witchland in the east. So they hung a while off Tenedos, waiting for the tide, and at high water sailed over the bar, and up the Dream past the dunes and mudflats of the Agaspian Mere, till they reached the bend of the river below Carsi. Solitary marshland stretched on either side, as far as the eye might reach, with clumps of willow and rare homesteads showing above the flat. Northward above the bend, a bluff of land fell sharply to the elbow of the river, and on the other side sloped gently away for a few miles till it lost itself in the dead level of the marshes. On the southern face of the bluff, a monstrous as a mountain, in those low sedge lands hung square and black the fortress of Carsi. It was built of black marble, rough-hewn and unpolished, the outworks enclosing many acres. An inner wall with a tower at each corner formed the main stronghold, and the southwest corner of the main stronghold, and the southwest corner, which was the palace, overhanging the river. And on the southwest corner of the palace, towering sheer from the water's edge, 70 cubits and more to the battlements, stood the keep, a round tower lined with iron, bearing on the corbel table beneath its parapet in varying form and untold repetition of sculptured figure the crab of Witchland. The outer ward of the fortress was dark with cypress trees, black flames burning changelessly to heaven from a billowy sea of gloom. East of the keep was the water gate, and beside it the bridge and bridge house across the river, strongly fortified with turrets and machicolations, and commanded from on high by the battlements of the keep. Dismal and fearsome to view was the strong place of Carsi, most like to the embodied soul of dreadful night brooding on the waters of that sluggish river. By day a shadow in the broad sunshine, the likeness of pitiless violence sitting in the place of power, darkening the desolation of the mournful fen. By night, a blackness more black than night herself. Now was the ship made fast near the water gate, and the lords of Witchland landed and their fighting men, and the gate opened to them, and mournfully they entered in and climbed the steep ascent to the palace, bearing with them their sad burden of the king. And in the great hall in Carsi was Eddison the 11th, laid in state for that night, and the day wore to its close, nor was any word from Eddison the 12th. But when the shades of light were falling, there came a chamberlain to Lord Grow as he walked upon the terrace without the western wall of the palace. And the chamberlain said, "My lord, the king bids you attend him in the iron tower, and he chargeth you bring unto him the royal crown of Witchland." Grow made haste to fulfill the bidding of the king, and betook himself to the great banqueting hall. And although reverently he lifted the iron crown of Witchland set thick with priceless gems, and went by a winding stair to the tower, and the chamberlain went before him. When they were come to the first landing, the chamberlain knocked on a massive door that was forthwith opened by a guard, and the chaplain said, "My lord, it is the king's will that you will attend his majesty in this chamber at the top of the tower." And Grow marveled, for none had entered that chamber for many years. Long ago had Gorais the Seventh practiced forbidden arts therein, and folks said that in that chamber he raised up those spirits whereby he gat his bane. Sit thence was the chamber sealed. Nor had the late kings need of it, since little faith they placed in art magical, relying rather on the might of their hands and the sword of Witchland. But Grow was glad at heart, for the opening of this chamber by the king met his designs halfway. Fearlessly he mounted the winding stairs that were dusky with the shadows of approaching night, and hung with cobwebs and strewn with the dust of neglect, until he came to the small low door of that chamber, and pausing, knocked thereon and hearkened for the answer. And one said from within, "Who knocketh?" And Grow answered, "Lord, it is I, Grow." And the bolts were drawn, and the door opened, and the king said, "Enter." And Grow entered and stood in the presence of the king. Now the fashion of the chamber was that it was round, filling the whole space of the loftiest floor of the round donjon keep. It was now gathering dusk, and weak twilight only entered through the deep embrasures of the windows that pierced the walls of the tower, looking to the four quarters of the heavens. A furnace glowing in the big hearth threw fitful gleams into the recesses of the chamber, lighting up strange shapes of glass and earthenware, flasks and retorts, balances, hourglasses, crucibles, and astrolabes. A monstrous, three-necked alembic of phosphorescent glass supported on a bell, and other instruments of doubtful and unlawful aspect. Under the northern window, over against the doorway, was a massive table blackened with age, whereon lay great books bound in black leather with iron gauze, gorge, and heavy padlocks. And in a mighty chair beside this table was King Gorais the 12th, robed in his conjuring robe of black and gold, resting his cheek on his hand that was lean as an eagle's claw. The low light, mother of shade and secrecy that hovered in the chamber, moved about the still figure of the king, his nose hooked as the eagle's beak, his cropped hair, his thick, close-cut beard, and shaven upper lip, and his high cheekbones and cruel, heavy jaw, and the dark eaves of his brows, whence the glint of green eyes showed as no friendly lamp to them without. The door shut noiselessly, and Grow stood before the king. The dusk deepened, and the firelight pulsed and blinked in that dread chamber, and the king leaned without motion on his hand, bending to Grow said, "Oh, my lord the king, I marvel not of this, for it is known to me that the soul endureth, albeit the body perish. Keep thou thy lips from other speech," said the king. "These be mysteries whereon but to think may snatch thee into peril, and whoso speaketh of them, though in so secret a place as this, and with me only, yet at his most bitter peril speaketh he." Grow answered, "O king, spake not lightly. Moreover, you did tempt me by your questioning. Nevertheless, I am utterly obedient to your majesty's admonition. The king rose from his chair and walked towards Grove slowly. He was an exceeding tall and lean as a starved cormorant, laying his hands upon the shoulders of Grove and bending his face to Grove's. "Art not afeard," he asked, "to abide me in this chamber at the close of day? Or hast not thought on't? And on these instruments thou seest their use and purpose, and the ancient use of this chamber?" Grove blenched never a whit, but stoutly said, "I am not afeard, O my lord the king, but rather rejoiced I at your summons, for it jumpeth with mine own designs, when I took counsel secretly in my heart after the woes of the face fulfilled for which land on the Foliot Isle. For in that day, O king, when I beheld the light of which land darkened, and our might abated in the fall of King Gorais the 11th, of glorious memory, I thought on you, Lord the 12th Gorais, raised up king in Carsey, and there was present to my mind the word of the soothsayer of old, where he singeth, 10, 11, 12 I see, insequent variety of puissance and mastery, with sword sinews and gramarye, in the mold of Carsey, embroidering freely, and being minded that he singleth out you, the 12th, as potent in gramarye, all my care was that these demons should be detained within your reach of your spells until we should have time to win home to you and to apprise you of their fairings, that so you might put forth your power and destroy them by art magic, or ever they come safe again to many mountain demon land." The king took Grove to his bosom and kissed him, saying, "Art thou not even jewel of wisdom and discretion? Let me embrace thee and love thee forever." Then the king stood back from him, keeping his hands on Grove's shoulders, and gazed piercingly upon him for a space in silence. Then kindled he a taper that stood in an iron candlestick by the table where the books lay, and held it to Grove's face, and the king said, "What thou art, and of good discretion, some courage hast thou, but if thou be to serve me this night, needs must I try thee first with terrors, till thou be inured to them, as tried gold runneth in the crucible. But if thou be base mental only, till that thou be taken by them." Grove said unto the king, "For many years, my lord, whenever I came to Carsey, I fared up and down the well, and I am acquainted with objects of terror as a child with his toys. I have seen in the southern seas by the light of Arcarnar and Canopus giant sea horses battling with 8-legged cowfishes and the whirlpools of Korsh. Yet was I unafraid. I was in the Isle of Kiona when the first of the pit brast forth in the isle and split it as a man's skull is split with an axe. And the green gulfs of the sea swallowed that isle, and the stench and the steam hung in air for days where the burning rock and earth had sizzled in the ocean. Yet was I unafraid. Also was I with Garcelar in the flight of Zaji Zakulo, when the ghouls took the balance over our heads, and portents walked in his halls in broad daylight, and the ghouls conjured the sun out of heaven. Yet was I unafraid. And for 30 days and 30 nights wandered I over the face of the Maruna in Upper Impland, where scarce a living soul had been, and there the evil whites of people that people there, this desert, dark my steps and gibbered at me in the darkness. Yet was I unafraid, and it came in due time to mourn a mariner, and thence, standing on the lip of the escarpment, as it were, on the edge of the world, looked south away, where never mortal eye had gazed aforetime, across the untrodden force of Bavina, and in that skyey distance preeminent, beyond range on range of ice-rolled mountains, I beheld two peaks thrown forever between firm land and heaven in unearthly loveliness, the spires and airy ridges of Conjuring, and the wild precipices that soar upward from the abysses to the queenly silent snow dome of Conjuring below. When Grow had ended, the king turned away from him, taking from a shelf a retort filled with a dark blue fluid, set it on a bain-marie, and lamp thereunder. Fumes of faint purple hue came forth from the neck of the retort, and the king gathered them in a flask. He made signs over the flask and shook forth in his hand therefrom a fine powder. Then said he unto Grow, holding up the powder in the palm of his hand, looked narrowly at his hand. And Grow looked. The king looked at him in temptation, and the powder moved and heaved like a tall mass of cheese mice, an overripe cheese. It increased in volume in the king's hand, and Grow perceived that each particular grain had legs. The grain grew before his eyes, making the size of mustard seeds, and then of barley corns, swiftly crawling each over other. And even as he marveled, they waxed great as kidney beans, and now was their shape and seeming clear to him, so that he beheld that they were small frogs and paddocks, and they overflowed from the king's hand as they waxed swiftly in size, pouring on to the floor. And they ceased not to increase and grow, and now were they large as little dogs, nor might the king retain more than a single one, holding his hand under its belly while it waved its legs in the air. And they were walking on the tables and jostling on the floor. Pallid they were, impermeable to light like thin horn, and their hue a faint purple, even as the hue of the vapour whence they were engendered. And now was the room filled with them, so that they mounted perforce one on another's shoulders, and they were of the bigness of well-fatted hogs, and they goggled their eyes at Grow and croaked. And the king looked narrowly on Grow, who stood in the presence of that spectacle, the crown of which